good afternoon or evening or whatever time of day you choose to watch this. I am here making yet another video, and I am inspired this week to make a video about a really exciting event that happened this past weekend. I referred to it before when I made my video about Boethius, and that is the Tolkien Among the Theologians digital symposium organized by my friend Austin Freeman and hosted by Houston Christian University, or formerly Houston Baptist University. And it was a really great time. Because I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I unfortunately had a lot of duties while this was going on and my wife was at work. I was able to catch a few of the papers, and they were good and thought-provoking, and I really enjoyed them. And I got to give my paper that was great to write and present on Friday night about Tolkien and Boethius, looking particularly at the questions of power and a little bit at providence as well in The Lord of the Rings. And I think how these tie into Boethius, and I think that weekend made me realize how deep the question of providence runs through The Lord of the Rings. It's something hopefully any reader of Tolkien will have caught before. But yeah, it was just a really wonderful time to meet with scholars. One of the great things about a Tolkien conference, as opposed to other conferences, is that all of us there love the source material. We're all fans of Tolkien as well as scholars. Like, you choose to do Tolkien scholarship because you are a fan of the novels, usually, not because, you have an axe to grind with someone somewhere or something. I don't know. You're just there because I love Tolkien. Wouldn't it be fun if I would get to do research on the guy? Right? That's what's happening. So it's very exciting that I got to do this, and I'm very thankful to Austin for organizing it and inviting me to give a paper. It's sort of the second time I've done work on Tolkien, the first time when I've been doing it for a scholarly audience. And one of the things that emerges as you think about Boethius and Tolkien is the creation of the world. And one of the most famous passages in the Simarillion. Here's my copy of the Simarillion, and shout out to Austin. I do plan on rereading it, even though I thought maybe I never would. I actually, in preparation for this weekend, got excited about the Silmarillion again. Right now, though, I'm not reading the Silmarillion because I'm reading Unfinished Tales. So, you can only do so much reading in your life. Anyway, so one of the most famous passages of the Silmarillion is the very first of the stories, the music of the Ainur, which begins with an extraordinarily Platonist, Neoplatonist, Plotinian statement that actually, if you read the theological tractates of Boethius, ties into Boethius there too. But that's not really what I'm here for. The music of the Ainur. There was Eru the One, who in Arda is called Ilúvatar, and he made first the Ainur, the holy ones, that were the offspring of his thought. And they were with him before aught else was made. And he spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music. And they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but few together, while the rest hearkened. For each comprehended only that part of the mind of Ilúvatar from which he came, and in the understanding of their brethren they grew but slowly. Yet ever as they listened they came to deeper understanding and increased in unison and harmony. And it came to pass that Ilúvatar called together all the Ainur, and declared to them a mighty theme, unfolding to them things greater and more wonderful than he had yet revealed. And the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amazed the Ainur, so that they bowed before Ilúvatar and were silent. Then Ilúvatar said to them, Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that ye make in harmony together a great music, capital G, capital M. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices if he will. But I will sit and hearken and be glad that through you great beauty has been awakened into song. Then the voices of the Ainur, like unto harps and lutes and pipes and trumpets and viols and organs, and like unto countless choirs singing with words, began to fashion the theme of Ilúvatar into a great music. And a sound arose of endless interchanging melodies, woven in harmony that passed beyond hearing into the depths and into the heights, and the places of the dwelling of Iluvatar were filled to overflowing, and the music and the echo of the music went out into the void, and it was not void. And so forth it goes, the creation of the universe by music. And, well, obviously I mentioned how there's the first line there, calling Eru the One. That's Platonism and whatnot. Things influencing Tolkien, of course, as a man who had read the pagan classics, as well, of course, as the medievals, as well as Thomas Aquinas, as well as Boethius, as well as all those sorts of things he's famous for doing, like Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and Beowulf and all of that. And so this ties into Boethius, this passage, in a number of ways. At the end, in the course of it, if you want to know, one of the Ainur named Melkor, who will later go by the name Morgoth when he's on Earth, comes and he tries to sing his own song. But Iluvatar, whatever Melkor does, Iluvatar weaves it in, which is a very Boethian theme as well, that evil is powerless in the face of divine providence, that evil itself, being a lack, being a deprivation, is ultimately weakness. As I continue now, I'm going to read for you a little bit from Jason M. Baxter's book, The Medieval Mind of C.S. Lewis, because if you're a Christian in the 21st century and you're thinking about medieval things, Tolkien and Lewis, actually anyone in the English-speaking world, whether you're a Christian or not, if you're thinking about medieval things, the work of Tolkien and Lewis is probably impinging upon you consciously or unconsciously. And so Baxter has this to say about Boethius specifically in part of his discussion of Boethius's influence on Lewis. And he says, "For Boethius, as for Cicero, there is a rational order that keeps the world in balance, keeping it from spinning out of control. It ensures that elements of different kinds bond properly to one another. It regulates how the seasons cycle in an ongoing carousel. This order also regulates how the stars and planets turn. He calls this cosmic order music, because it is a deep mathematical harmony that frames out the world in understandable patterns. What is more, Boethius, again like Cicero, taught that through instrumental music we can regain a taste of the musicality of the world and thus retune our souls to cosmic music. Music is philosophical therapy, bringing the soul back into tune with the great conductor's universe. This is why the consolation of philosophy alternates between prose and verse." And in fact, there have been people, this is now me talking, who have tried putting the verse portions of the Consolation to music. And you can go and you can find their videos and listen to people singing Boethius. So, and this is all very interesting. And these sorts of ideas, of course, they root back into Plato and Cicero and also St. Clement of Alexandria. And they also weave their way through Chalcidius, my copy of whom is not yet arrived in the mail. What he's referencing here in this passage, he's actually doing this immediately after talking about Book 1, Chapter 5, the verse section of Book 1, Chapter 5 of the Consolation of Philosophy, which I shall just read the opening lines of in this E.V. Watts translation, or V.E. Watts, not E.V., V.E. Watts. "Creator of the starry heavens, Lord on thy everlasting throne, thy power turns the moving sky and makes the stars obey fixed laws." That's actually all I'm going to read from that, so I don't spend my whole time just reading, because I have more things I want to read and more things I want to say. But that's just sort of where you'll find that. It's page 46 in the Penguin Classics of Boethius. And so you see here this resonance that music itself is part of the created order, and there is actual order, right? That's what the Greek word cosmos means. It has to do with order. Cosmetics is about putting your face into order, or a cosmetic change to a building is about making it look more nice, looking a look more ordered or orderly. So this is what's sort of going on here, is the cosmos, the ordered universe, which actually there I'm stealing the name of a research project about Robert Gross' test that I have colleagues working on. and a former boss. So all of this, music is a big part of this philosophy. And Boethius, of course, is most famous for the Consolation. And I mentioned already he has his theological tractates, but he was a much wider philosopher than that. This is a thing that perhaps I should mention. And one of the things that Boethius wrote is De Institutione Musica, which has an English translation of the fundamentals of music. Sometimes we call it the principles of music, the musical institution, perhaps one might wish to say, in a unpleasant literal translation of the Latin. And in De Institutione Musica, chapter 1, very near the beginning, in the introductory section, Boethius says the following: "The sense of hearing can apprehend sounds in such a way that it not only judges them and recognizes their differences, but it very often takes pleasure in them if they are in the form of sweet and well-ordered modes, whereas it finds displeasure if the sounds heard are unordered and incoherent. Thus, it follows that, since there are 4 mathematical disciplines, the others are concerned with the investigation of truth, whereas music is related not only to speculation, but to morality as well. For nothing is more consistent with human nature than to be soothed by sweet modes and disturbed by their opposites. And this affective quality of music is not peculiar to certain professions or ages, but it is common to all professions, and infants, youths, and old people as well are so naturally attuned to the musical modes by a certain spontaneous affection that there is no age at all that is not delighted by sweet song. Thus we can begin to understand that apt doctrine of Plato, which holds that the soul of the universe is united by a musical concord." You could, I'm going to pause here. The Latin word concordia could be taken as the same as the Greek harmonia. "For when we compare that which is coherently and harmoniously joined together in sound, that is, that which gives us pleasure, so we come to recognize that we ourselves are united according to this same principle of similarity. For similarity is pleasing, whereas dissimilarity is unpleasant and contrary." And here, Plato's Timaeus. Here's, again, I have like a heaping library bursting forth with penguins. So here's the Penguin Classics translation by Desmond Lee. And the reference is, "The body of the heaven is visible, but the soul invisible and endowed with reason and harmony, being the best creation of the best of intelligible and eternal things." And then he goes on to discuss the harmony of the world's soul, or as however you wish to articulate that. So that's sort of what the Plato reference was right there. Plato's Timaeus 37a, for those who care. And hopefully you all care deeply about Plato and the Timaeus, because the Timaeus is great. It's my favorite Platonic dialogue. So, where I want to go with this right now, as we think about this music and about how music and harmony are there together, just to say that this is sort of, this you see here, music brings pleasure. Music is itself, however, rational. Music is ordered. Music is mathematical. It's not just Bach who says this, right? And so then by operating in these ways, you, in participating in music, are participating in the order of the universe. You enjoy pleasure. You derive pleasure from listening to music. You are thereby deriving pleasure from the order of the universe. And so it is itself has an ability, this is what Boethius is saying, it has an ability to actually help reorder your character, which is kind of cool. And so, where do we go from here in a discussion of music and the cosmos? Well, it's worth, so we've got Plato, we've got Boethius. We're going to talk a bit about an apocryphal story about Pythagoras. Like most stories about Pythagoras, or Pythagoras, we don't know the truth. But the story goes that he noticed, once going by his blacksmith's shop, that the bang, 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 banging of the hammer on the anvil would change according to like sort of different lengths of metal and all these sorts of things like that. And so he did himself some experiments with banging bits of metal at different lengths and figured out the octave. Basically, that's like the short version. But he just figured it out, the octave and the intervals, by realizing that this is mathematical, that those sounds that sound good to your ear. I'm not a musicologically white supremacist guy, as some people seem to think those of us who say these things are. Those things that to the ancient Greek ear, and to most of us who follow through from that, I guess, through Tallis and Bach and Beethoven, until music lost its mind in the 20th century. But thankfully the Beatles participate in it too, so it's not all bad. Those things that work according to these things are harmonious, and they're mathematical, that you can do math in terms of how long your bit of metal you're whacking is, basically. That there are mathematical proportions, that the world exists in harmony. To cite the title of the book by King Charles III, our monarch, our reigning sovereign, who has discusses this very story, actually, in the book, and talks about how these things are sort of hidden. This is part of the hidden order of the universe, that art and architecture and in other ways, our agriculture and our business are actually somehow meant to participate and reflect. So music is itself part of the order of the universe, even in this sort of basic physical way. It's not just that music sounds nice and makes us feel good. Music is mathematical, as anyone who has had to take a harmony class, as I did when I was studying the clarinet. Music is a mathematical event, and it is ordered, just as the universe is mathematical and ordered. And sort of that's what Bach was trying to describe when he was doing all that stuff that they make you learn when you study harmony. Although, of course, Bach wrote mostly counterpoint, not harmony. Anyway, so music is a big deal, and music is a major part of life. It is a major part of human existence. Clement of Alexandria uses the same image of God creating the universe using music. Obviously, he is symbolically and metaphorically doing so. But this is an important thing when you think back upon your life and your universe and your encounters with music. At some level, you are participating in the order of the universe. And in Greek, we might call this the logos of the universe. It's ordered, its order, its logic, its reason. You are embracing the order, logic, and reason of the universe by participating in music, by enjoying music, by making music. You are a participant in the cosmos itself. And this itself brings us, therefore, I suppose, to the great Logos, who himself is the ultimate order of the universe, of whom, of course, Plato does not know, but Maximus the Confessor, of course, does. And as we participate in all of the lesser logoi of the created world, we are, and participate in them rightly and truly, of course, we are ourselves progressing according to our own logoi, which bring us ultimately to the Logos, who is Christ. And so when you think about music, classical music in particular, sacred music of our own, therefore, our own Christian tradition, I don't know enough about the music of the world to see to what degree it matches up with the Pythagorean theories of music or Boethian theories of music. But when you listen to something like, say, Tallis or Bach or Strigio's Mass in 40 Parts, which I have a CD of and which I love, or continuing through, say, even to Bruckner, I would argue. I'm thinking specifically of sacred music here, so Bruckner's Te Deum and his settings of some psalms, his motets. When you think of this music, Healy Willen, let's get Canadian and Anglican here, right, folks? When you think about these people, Orlando Gibbons, they're just coming to me now. Purcell, Handel, Haydn's Creation, Handel's Messiah. When you start singing these songs or listening to these songs, you are yourself participating in the very order of the very universe of which you are a member. And you are also, therefore, in a sense, since you are turning this music to the praise of God himself, who is the ultimate orderer of the universe, he himself being not part of the universe, This is another important thing that comes from sort of classic theology, it's in Boethius too. Boethius is worth reading just all over Boethius. You should be there. But yes, God's order, God himself is beyond order and brings order to the universe, being himself the Word, the Logos, who makes all of our lesser logoi move towards him. So when we think about the cosmic mystery of Jesus Christ and Maximus, we can also be thinking about Plato and Boethius. But you know what? This is the cool thing about really great sacred music, is that you can also get lost in it, right? You don't need to be thinking about all of these things, and you can still nevertheless have some sort of transcendent experience, which, if your heart is rightly ordered towards God, that means that you are encountering him there, possibly. I know all of the caveats that come from Augustine Confessions Book 10 about how maybe you just enjoy live music. But it is also the case that you can, following Augustine and De Doctrina Christiana, you can also be using the live music you enjoy as a means of bringing yourself to God and loving him more and worshiping him better. And so when I think about those times when I go to these, sometimes I go to these highfalutin church services, less so here, but in other times in my life, in Edinburgh, going to St. Mary's Cathedral with its beautiful choir, and they would have choral services every day. That would be those feelings of transcendence, of being transported somewhere better within myself, closer to God, could actually be true. And that I am participating in the order of the universe when I am participating in that sacred music in that cathedral. Or, as I do these days, I put my earbuds in and tune into BBC Sounds and find choral evensong from BBC Three. I don't listen to it live because it's not conducive to my lifestyle. And I do dishes, and I allow myself to participate in the music of the universe through listening to choral evensong. And so what I would love to encourage you to do is to hunt down some of the sacred music, perhaps on the one hand, but also to be more willing to enter more deeply into the experience of music and acknowledge that it is a thing that you can use to love God more. And that it doesn't need to be touchy-feely either. Anyway, we don't need to get into schmaltz and the issues I might have with contemporary music. Instead, I'm just going to close with a hymn. This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears all nature sings, and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, his hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world, the birds their carols raise, the morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world, he shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass I hear him pass, he speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world, oh, let me ne'er forget that though the wrong seems oft so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world, the battle is not done. Jesus who died shall be satisfied, and earth and heaven be one.